All right, let's do roll call. Call the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. I'll start with me. Colin Harvey here.
Emily Doran here.
Ryan Ryder here.
Pat Sheehan here.
Bobby Hempling here.
Barry O'Cambry here.
Perfect. All right, moving to the public comments. Any public comments before moving to the agenda?
Do you boys have anything to say?
Yeah, the boys have anything to say.
No, please leave him alone.
Now it's time.
This is your chance.
Your only chance.
You have,
If you brought-
you have
if you
3
brought-
minutes apiece.
Pizza, you ought to bring pizza for everybody. That's my
I'll
thought.
remember that next time. If you want the 7-Eleven pizza,
There you go.
okay.
Okay, discuss one possible action on the minutes from the August 19th, 2024 RCDC meeting. Do I have a motion to pass those meeting minutes?
I gave a couple of typos to Michaela, but other than that, it's fine. I was not shown as being in attendance, but I was shown as asking questions and acting on motions, so
Oh,
There you go.
it
your
was
ghost.
personal.
Your ghost.
Other than that, everything's fine.
Motion to pass?
Motion to pass.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, now, next one, you're gonna handle, Ashley?
Yes, I'll take it real quick. So this is just our annual item. We will be renewing the terms of service for, let's see, this year it is Colin, Bobby, and Barry. We reached out to each of you all and you were still interested in serving, so I hope that's still the case. Just more of an informational item to let y'all know. We'll put this on the city council meeting in December, and then they will generally reappoint, as generally as they see fit. Or if there's other people in line, sometimes they take that into consideration. But other than that, it should be status quo.
Great,
So,
thanks.
thank you.
All right, moving right along.
Are there a bunch of people in line for these positions?
Probably a couple, 2 or 3, that are in the queue. Usually they sign up for more than one. Usually they're like
Yeah.
2 or 3 or whatever, so they're waiting for kind of any opening. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're just like
Dying to be on the
in the
RCDC?
background.
Talk yourself.
You're not getting
talk
weekly
yourself
emails.
Not that I'm asking for any particular reason.
The demand for the high salary that we get,
Yes.
it
Yes. Yeah.
creates
Yeah,
Volunteer
a
hours.
supply of volunteers.
all right, okay, that takes care of number 3. Number 4, update on meetings with local developers, including discussion on a representative committee to discuss concepts and consider funding conceptual designs. So we did have to cancel a couple of meetings over the summer because we did not have quorum. But Emily and I did get a chance to meet with a few folks, inclusive of the people that are the owners of the Chinatown complex. But we also have spoken to another developer as well. And so we maybe together we'll just give a little bit of update of what we've learned and what we think might be a good next step. So one of the other folks we talked to are the people that are doing, if anybody's familiar with the development they're going to do on West 6 where the old Swedish Hill was. So it's a pretty impressive combination of things. It's bigger than anything that we could do here, for sure. But it has a lot of very interesting concepts that, that as a development sitting up against Clarksville, that they had to put a lot of thought into that might be really helpful to us. So we learned a lot about kind of sort of the art of the possible. They had some really cool models over there, et cetera. So that was really interesting. We also learned a lot about, basically based on trends now, et cetera, what's working and kind of what's not working. And so let me stop there. What did I miss?
I think the thing that kept resonating is creating an ecosystem. Not just thinking of, okay, we're going to put in a Hop Dotties and it's going to change everything. What needs to happen around Hop Dotties, for example, to create this wonderful ecosystem? And so that, I think, was the piece that we never really talked about as a committee around that, and thinking about what are the companies or restaurants, et cetera, that making sense to be there. It's not just bringing better restaurants. There's so much more that we need to think through. And I think that was just helpful to see it and hear it and go, okay, now it's clicking. Because I think we were thinking about it of, we update a few restaurants and it's going to change things.
What elements of that, landscaping, water supply, sewer supply, road improvements, et cetera, would be within the ambit of this group? I mean, we can't go out and subsidize a restaurant, I don't think, within the scope of the
No.
RCDC.
No.
But
No.
we could provide, if it was beneficial, landscaping, water, sewer. We did that in the past. We did
Right.
water and sewer extensions for businesses out on BK Road. We could probably do a little bit of road improvement kind of stuff, but within our scope, that's the kind of thing we need to keep our eye out for, opportunities to do that to help people, I think.
I think that's 100% too, 100% true. I think in that is a space we should be looking at. I think the other thing that we, really learned is, with probably everything you just listed being the exception, I mean, what it's going to take to get someone to do a project of that magnitude is like I said, with the exception of some of those infrastructure improvements, we're not going to be the tipping point for somebody that does a $30 million
No,
project.
Yeah.
we're not a venture capital fund.
Right. So and this will come into the conversation a little bit down the road, because it's some of what we talked about a little bit last year. But I think, and this gets into the proposing of potentially a committee, is I think it would be really great to get a cross-section of a couple people from council, a couple people from this group, and a couple people that are highly interested parties, basically folks on Timberline that are going to be closest, to that, and give them the same awareness and understanding that we've had. The developer we worked with, that's not the owner of Chinatown, is totally up for doing a little bit of an open house, sharing some of those concepts, getting people up to speed, and I think that would be a great learning experience. That then ultimately what we would like to do is start to, and this is something else we probably could fund that's not in the gazillions of dollars, is some conceptual drawings that embody some of what that group is okay with and thinks is of interest and could be with interest in the community, so that we can start a dialogue about something concrete. So that's sort of the second part of the proposal, is put together an integrated group like that, broaden the education of what's happening out there right now, and then take that to fund, maybe $30,000 to $50,000 worth of different scenario designs that we can start to engage the community on without having spent too much money on sort of the art of the possible. And like, what are people like, no way, and what are like, oh my gosh, I never knew that was a possibility, is the mindset before ever spending too much money on anything, because if we're not on the same page, it just won't matter. So I'll stop there. And there may be some other ways to accomplish that. That's just some brainstorming.
Yeah, or just getting, like you said, I mean, do you even have to start engaging with, well, I guess you do need both council and this group, but like just with all those neighbors that are gonna be directly influenced, and just start there, because without them nodding their head, it's gonna be really tough.
Agreed. I think the one thing, and this was, I guess, another maybe minor lesson learned with the conversations and the learning we went through, is I think the other thing that's really hard is to get people to envision a concept that they haven't seen before through discussion without any sort of visual model of that. Now,
Because the mind wonders and
Sure.
creates
So,
something.
but yeah, the idea would be, like, this isn't a very long process. Like, here's a group, let's share what we've learned from somebody that's a third party objective person, not trying to develop anything here, but has done something of scale and impressive. And then go straight from there to, let's get some conceptual drawings that we think people, won't go, will be somewhat open to considering, and then very quickly do exactly what you described.
Yeah.
That would be the thinking.
In our conversation with the Chinatown group, and we were very clear of like, here are the parameters. So let's work within them.
Yeah.
And I think they're in the place of trying to figure out what that looks like from their side.
I think that's right.
They're willing.
Yeah. They're
Yeah,
not
they're-
saying no. I think they learned a lot from the first round of this many, many years ago, and they don't want to repeat that. They want to be very positive, open communication, no secrets, like all out there. And so that's, I think, a very positive sign. It's just we've got to get a group of constituents in the community that are passionate about this topic, and those that live on Timberline, absolutely, and help us craft what could be a great ecosystem.
Where's
all
the
of us.
second group looking? Or is there not a
The second
area?
group was the group developing the the Swedish Hill.
Right, so
Street.
it's just purely conceptual, just of like.
That was just a, hey, this is a world-class project.
Yeah, we just,
I mean, they've gone to the nines in every capacity
Yeah.
from architecture and everything. It was just it was a learning.
how they went about it. That was part of the education for us. And when you look at it, yes, it's a hotel, and but there's so much more in the thought that went into how it, inches into the community and the thoughtfulness around it. It was just very interesting to hear another perspective.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of really interesting sort of cantilever things that bring down, the impact of what you think about in terms of a
Yeah.
typical, straight up from the ground
Yeah.
type development. I thought some of that stuff was pretty interesting and helpful to just
Yeah.
see. I mean, that's what's nice about their deals. One, they're not trying to do anything here, so they're just educating us.
Got
into-
it. So one is with the developer, the other one is with the
Correct.
conceptual,
Outside
just of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the art of what's possible, right? Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, exactly. And then what was helpful as it did relate to the owners of Chinatown is we did take a tour of the Lauren, which is where what used to be there, Taco Cabana, a couple things. used to
Taco
be.
Cabana, yeah.
Over there off of Lamar, and we took a complete tour of that, and that was very interesting because apparently that went through a couple of different phases, in which it went into the pandemic and it went into some financial difficulty with not that group but some others, and so they ended up jumping in and having a much bigger role than they usually do in the development. But really beautiful stuff that they have done where you're on different levels, and as you look down on different parts of the development, you're actually looking at green space. You're not looking at
The trash cans.
or HVAC equipment or stuff like that. I mean, it's not necessarily the answer, but there's some cool concepts that make a lot of sense
Yeah.
for what we're trying to do.
So we went on an educational tour.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
it was
Learned
fun.
a lot.
Yeah.
It was helpful.
So I mean, I don't even know if we need to pass a motion to do that so much as maybe we do. I don't know.
Do you need to pass a motion to form a group and fund it if the group goes forward, or is that afterwards?
I think the initial pass of just forming the group and meeting with the West Sixth group is $0.
Yeah.
And then if we can get to at least some general common ground of like, hey, I think this is positive and maybe worth doing some conceptual designs, that would
Bring it
be
back.
the approval of cash.
So I mean, from an RCDC standpoint, I'd like to be part of that for two reasons. One, I'm on this committee. The other second part is I'm on Westgate now, and that butts up directly against. That's even more closer than Timberline. So I have a direct butt up against the Palisades. So that's your other alternative, right? Besides Chinatown. So,
Right.
If we go that way, I would like to try to be part of that.
I think that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can do 3 people on that. I think it would be.
A lot of quorum.
Yeah, I think that would be great. My recommendation for council, and I guess I'll just have to ask, is that it be Kevin and Brooke, since she just finished doing the commercial codification, the comprehensive plan, and then we can figure out what's the right handful of folks between. Well, you'll be representing the other piece that I didn't realize.
Yeah,
and then-
Palisades right there.
Yeah, and then I think we know a few people on Timberline that would be particularly vocal about anything related to this.
Yeah, I don't think you have to restrict it to Chinatown.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the church sitting over there that's voiced, I thought they were willing to move if somebody could find
No,
another place.
they will not.
Okay, and
Oh, I thought they
and the
were.
hospital,
The hospital is still in play. I think the church will be at some point.
Yeah.
I
They need to find a place to go.
yeah, I spoke at the what was it, the Westlake Chamber of Commerce for Gavin because he couldn't make it, and ended up in a pretty lengthy discussion with who is sort of the interim CFO of the church,
yeah.
and they're pretty adamant that they have no interest in doing that until they find whatever they believe that is a special place for them to have their church.
Is their congregation growing, shrinking, stable? What is their?
Probably shrinking. I mean, that's why at some point the math probably doesn't work, but
Well,
they did not.
They don't pay taxes,
They don't pay
and
taxes.
they get money off parking
Yeah.
and the daycare. So they're doing all right.
Yeah. The only reason for narrowing it down to this is we literally have somebody that's like, it's not a question. They're fine to do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean,
they're first, yeah.
Yeah.
The first,
exactly.
yeah.
That's
First
a
on
good
the
point,
list,
Pat.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we get one deal like that done, I think we hit a tipping point where
Yeah.
Palisades comes into play, and we're somebody that's willing to take the risk of consolidating some of the smaller properties to make a viable development place. I think all those things come into play
Yeah.
if we can get one thing done.
I mean, the Palisades is a bigger actually chunk of land than the
Yeah.
downtown
No,
piece.
exactly.
So-
Yeah, no, I think they, from the session we had with them together, I think they're open to things,
Yeah.
for sure. I think this one would be easier, but we shouldn't, we should keep it in mind. So, so do we
It's
think we
where all
need
the
we
wrecks
need
are.
a motion to form this committee, or I think we just can do it?
Why don't you just point yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
You too.
Okay.
This is, you know,
Okay.
Don't leave Emily out.
I'm not, no, I'm not. So Emily, Barry, and I will reach out to council and see if those two are willing to do it, and then we'll together decide a group of a few folks from the neighborhood that would join that group, and
yeah.
then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Number 5 is not necessarily 100% a new topic. And then we're going to get to a very specific project that we'll talk about here in number 6. But we talked about last year, just in general, earmarking $50,000 a year, like just to do some stuff in the park. Last year we authorized it related to that retaining wall. I think that turned into an engineering study. I believe that study is almost complete, so we'll probably expect an ask around that. And then we're going to move into number 6 here in a second, which is it was just a new project around the same amount of money and we're in another year, so that would be good. But in addition to that, I think we really want to, or I would like to open the discussion for us, whether we with the park as well as other things that we can enhance, in the community. I mean, Bobby, how much do we have roughly in the account?
I don't know, because the November budget wasn't.
No, you're well over that. I picked up some, finance stuff from Abel when I was here for another meeting on another purpose, but as of the end of October, we had $658,978.34. And we're making income at over $17,000 a month, and so there would be November added to that, which would bring us up to whatever 658 plus 17 is. I was a history major.
75.
Yeah, 675. So we've got a bunch of bucks.
Well, some of that goes on, I mean, if you look at the course of the year, some of that pays city salaries too, so
Yeah.
like it's not a full, but.
Yeah, that's right. We've
Yeah.
got that 75,000 or whatever that
Yep.
is. That's that annual piece. Anyway, so one, in general, I'm just kind of advocating that we continue to do that, and we'll kind of hear about that next $50,000 project. But I think Melissa and I had a chance to catch up the other day. They have like 5 projects, I think, that are listed that they were like, if these are the most important things that everybody could pretty much agree on, and then maybe in the next session hear about some of those, and then hear about some of the other things we think we can get done or want to get done. We've talked about Edge Grove. We've talked about I think when this project is over related to the water, I think we're going to have to really revisit reinforcing the Eanes Creek buffer, like all that construction back there. It's like, I mean, it's like I didn't used to be able to see the Shell station, and now I'm like, oh, there's the Shell station. How nice. But anyway, I think there's a number of things with a balance like that we should just start getting some things done, as long as it's still in alignment with our
What that would mean, they need to come and talk to us, and we need to go visit with them. Or we need to attend some of their meetings, I suppose. When do they meet?
What?
The Park Commission.
Noon, at noon.
What's their regular program?
Second Tuesday at noon.
So anyway, I just kind of wanted to test the waters in general with us being a little bit more aggressive with a.
Noon.
Sorry, I didn't know you guys were scheduling stuff.
Noon meetings have been a problem for us to get staff, to get people to go, but we'll talk about that. See if we can find volunteers to show up and communicate with those good folks. Okay, excuse me for interrupting.
No, you're fine. And anyway, I'm just curious to open commentary a little bit about like what are the thoughts about being just a little bit more aggressive with. I mean, there's only so much we're going to allocate to a true RCDC, thing versus what I think is more politics, communication, messaging, collaboration is what's going to get something done on the corridor.
You mean in addition to the 50,000 that we
Correct.
earmarked
Yeah.
last,
Yes.
last year to
Yeah.
say, hey, this is your budget, this is what you have to the parks.
Yeah.
So that they could plan around that.
Yep.
You're saying go beyond that.
Yeah, I'm saying that we wouldn't limit it to that. I'm not saying we're just gonna carte blanche say it's some other number, but we agreed on 50,000, but I don't think we said, that was necessarily a ceiling. And so I just wanted, if that's true, then it would make a lot of sense to hear about the other 4 projects that they're doing besides the one that will be introduced this evening. And then also continue to brainstorm a little bit on, whether it be in the future, some of those infrastructure things or some of the other things that are on the perimeter of the community, that affect what it looks like to look at Rolling Wood. I think those are all valid things that we can, I'd like it to be for a year from now, and we can point to 10 things that are better and a process around redevelopment that's actually going somewhere.
So I think so. Just to clarify at least my stance on this, I think one of the ways we can look at this is we know right now you said we're doing 17,000 per month. I think that comes out. Just did quick math here, $204,000 a year. We give 75,000 to the staff, so that gives us 129. My damn phone just went dead. I think that's 129,000 annually. So out of that, we can carve out a % of that, right? And we kind of allocate and forecast out of what we think we could allocate for the park for the next 4 years. I think that makes sense. Or community improvement, maybe not park per se.
Yeah, I think it's broader than the park. I just they have
Yeah.
outlined some things.
No, I know. I just
beautification.
beautification and amenities and
Yes.
quality of life things,
100%.
whatever that is. And we have to have some operating wiggle room for when we have our own projects. So that's probably what 50K usually is. I haven't seen us do anything more than that. So I think it's just more of because if they can plan off of what we do, right? We have a forecast, then we can tell them, okay, look for your next not grand vision of the park, but 2 to 3 years, and then we can build a plan out. I think that makes sense. So I don't know what that looks like or how we get that done, but there's got to be if we can allocate money annually or plan for it, then I think it makes sense.
I think that's great. I think they've done the hard work on outlining the projects. So then it's a matter of being educated about those and then doing the exercise you just described. I don't think that's that hard. That's probably going to result in.
We need to hear the project.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
of
would be
course.
next. No, that's next step.
We ultimately have to carry
Yeah.
the project through. I mean, there's a certain
Yeah.
thing like the
Yes.
hearings and whatnot that we have to do in order to be able to fund them.
It was more so he was gauging the room. I was just giving him an idea of how I would be in favor of that if we did something like this where we have more of a planning process. And what is it? It's better if you have multiple steps to a project versus we just want to do just a simplification. But I want to plant a tree. Well, great, but in 2 years we're gonna rip the tree down and it's gonna be where all the construction equipment goes.
Sure.
So that's not a great idea of money.
Right.
So let's think about how we do something that is
Exactly.
sustainable. That's all.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to gauge. Just general
Of
perspective.
course, following our process.
Okay, well then that's great. That gives us some perspective on next steps, which is exactly what Pat just said, which would be in a future meeting to hear from you all. So let's move to number 6, which is basically the second $50,000 project, that's being proposed, which is related to the planting of trees across the park area and community facilities. Is the best way to do this, Melissa, for you to just give us an overview?
And I hope you don't mind if I step back to 5 for just 1 second.
Oh, go for it.
So Melissa Morrow, 2502.
Hold the mic down.
Melissa Morrow, 2502 Timberline Drive, in case you're looking for someone on Timberline. I've lived here 26 years. I work at WEA, West Austin Youth Association, so I'm very familiar with running parks and park areas. I'm the parks chair right now. I've been it for about a year. I've been on parks for probably 3 years. And I was on council in 2001 to 2004. I think around the time RCDC was formed. Back then, one of the biggest topics that they talked about was funding park projects. Whether y'all know it or not, Parks does not have a budget. We're not given money, so I love hearing you guys talk about that concept of sort of, okay, here's where some money is gonna be, so we can start talking about projects and know how much we have to spend or possible spend. I know we sent this project that I'm about to propose to City Council, and they recommended that it be funded by RCDC. Colin and I talked a little bit about it. I know over the years, there's been sort of a difference of both legal opinion and just ideas amongst the committee members about what to spend the money on and what we could spend the money on. So I totally I first of all respect your time and I really appreciate y'all doing this. But I also realize that we will sometimes be aligned, parks, and sometimes RCDC will not. And I also understand from having been on council that sometimes police bonuses or hiring a new person or putting in a water line is more important than putting in a tree. Or some of the, what many of us think in the parks is sort of these are extras. So anyway, with all that said, I want to tell you a little bit about our process. About a year ago, I got, when I became the chair, we had some conflicts about sort of how people felt the money should be spent or what we should be doing on parks. And there had been sort of a stalemate in some ways, not anyone's fault, but just not very much was getting done, and there was some frustration. And so we went through an exercise where we basically listed out all the possible things. Like we literally asked everyone on parks and asked from the community anything you could ever want to do in the park. And we kind of came up with a list of about 10 or 12 things. And then we literally put up a board and we said, all right, if you had to rank your top 5 things, take your sticky note, take your name, and put it on the board on one of those 12 things. And very quickly, we found a lot of consensus around 5 items. One of them was the retaining wall, because we had been talking about it a lot, and we felt like we were in a good place. We still needed to get the engineering done, but we had done everything we could with the resources we had to basically recommend it. And then working on the trail. Many of you use, a lot of people use the trail. It can be used by all different kinds of ages, etc. But I wouldn't say that it's in disrepair, but it's not, some of the border around it is uneven. Some places get washed out. We have to replace it quite a bit. And so that one was a much more lengthy sort of process. Took us almost 6 months to sort of get, okay, we got 2 different groups out here to say, if we were to literally replace all of those stones and put in either, there's a thing on the Violet Crown Trail that they use, I'm gonna forget what it's called right now. Stay lock. And it basically makes it so that you can take the DG, the disintegrated granite, and you can make it so that it's almost, it doesn't move, it doesn't get washed out. It still looks really similar, you can walk on it really similar, but it doesn't get washed out. And then we got bids, and that came in close to, if we were to do sort of our dream walk trail, at about $250,000. That made all of us pause and say, hey, okay, now we know what doing it that way would be. We don't really feel like the community thinks there's 200, at least the Parks Commission, nobody really felt like, had a strong feeling about let's go out and spend $250,000 on that. We have drainage issues, water lines, et cetera, that we felt like probably rose to the occasion. So we moved on to trees and additional plantings. So that is what the motion for 6 is this time. We worked with Mas Verde, and when we did the walk around with the trail, we also we asked the engineers to come out and walk us if there were any major drainage problems within the park. It might sound strange to you, but there's no major drainage problems in the park. There are things that come off of the park that become a problem for other areas. But with the exception of, and I'll just throw this out, one concept of redoing it would literally be like putting in retaining ponds that would take over the entire lower park. We're not going to do that. It would be millions of dollars, and it wouldn't necessarily solve to the extent that we need some of the things that are happening on the streets. So coming back again to the trees, we then looked at where are the fields that we have right now. As someone who runs a sports field, I know people love trees to stand underneath them, but also once you put a tree somewhere, it's very hard to remove it, or most people don't want to. But it can keep you from enlarging your fields, etc. We've looked at the historical sort of, I'm not going to say that necessarily the park master plan as it stands right now is something that everyone is bought into, but there are aspects of it, generally like where the fields are, where the parking is sort of accepted. And so the area that the trees, and I can't remember if there's a picture.
There are 2 pictures.
the area that they're talking about putting some of the trees is along the, let's see, what would that be? The east side of the playing fields, that would allow some shade, that would shade both sort of the parking area and be sort of a visual block. And also, yeah, so you can see,
This is not real.
yeah,
It's like AI.
yeah, they're not real. but
The
you
next
can
one
see-
is actually probably better, Michaela.
What's that? The next
There's
picture.
another slide. There.
Yeah.
I think that's a better, those trees aren't there. You'll notice there are no shadows.
Yeah.
Everything else got a shadow. The trees are make-believe at this point. But that's what they're talking about doing, and
Yeah. So, and then as you go back, there's another area sort of on the back curve at the back of the parking lot, where we would also, there were some additional trees that would be back there. When you look at, believe y'all got the bids in your packet. This is not a, this is not the bid we would probably go with in terms of, this was just sort of an estimate. This was like, okay, if we could do this, how much of us just doing this would it cost? And we all felt pretty comfortable with 50,000 as a long-term investment in the parks. Trees are a really great thing for, again, all ages, all people getting to use them.
but that's trees and irrigation for them, because
Yes,
they're
it's
not gonna
trees.
live
No,
very
no, no.
long
It's
unless you
trees,
have.
irrigation, and in fact, it also has some, what he called sort of erosion control, other plantings that go along the bottom of them, so that you don't just have a tree standing there with nothing else and it can't hold the water,
There's the
especially in the
grasses
early
and-
years. Yeah. Let's see, so, yeah, the trees, so that's the motion that you have in front of you is really 50,000 for the trees. Our next steps ideally would be for you all to vote on it, whether it's this month or next month, and say, yes, we'd like to do 50,000 towards trees and plantings. Then we would go back to Mas Verde and say, okay, we have approval to do up to 50,000. We really want to get a good plan. We would come back to you guys. You can either bless it or not, and then it would go to city council.
And one more thing that
Yeah.
I just learned is, in order for us to vote on this now, is we also have to open this for public hearing and discussion, should there be any. So I'll do that now, now that you've kind of given us a nice summary. Thank you. Is there any public
That's
comment?
what we were doing.
Wyatt Palmer, you want
Now
to
it's
talk?
official.
Yeah. I did too, but I was informed more clearly.
I see. I see.
Can I ask you a
That's why we have
question?
an
So,
attorney.
I know that we, as RCDC, can't spend money on maintenance items, but can you tell me where y'all spend?
I'm not sure about that.
Well,
I'm not sure about
okay,
that.
let me finish my sentence. So, having said that, where are y'all spending most of your maintenance dollars now? Are there capital improvements, I guess maybe like that retaining wall, that would cut down on y'all's maintenance expenses that we do as capital projects?
That's a great question. I couldn't tell you really without Izzy being here saying like this year, this is where they spent their money. But what I can say is so the 5 things on our list right now was the retaining wall, trees, trail, making the area around the parking more safe, which I think actually the trees will help contribute to that, making a more delineated area for the walking trail. And then the last one was, lower pavilion erosion. And the reason why I'm telling you those 5 is when we went back and started talking to the staff, and Izzy in particular, who's in Public Works, and said, hey, which of these things can you guys do, and which of them do we need to outsource and get someone else to bid out? And so they've already done one of ours on the list, which was the lower pavilion erosion. I don't know if y'all noticed the little steps that they put in over there. They basically, over time, so it wasn't a quick project, but they basically put that concrete area over the part that was eroding right next to the pavilion. So, question again was,
Where are y'all spending most of your maintenance dollars in, so that maybe capital dollars that we spend at 50,000 at a time could help y'all curb those costs so that,
so, and maybe Ashley knows
It's
better.
all just, equipment and maintenance to maintain the field. I mean, nothing really stands out here. Utilities, a decent amount to pay for the water up there. I mean, the budget is,
Irrigation breaks.
yeah, the budget is a total of 126,000, and that's including mulching, which usually costs about 8,000 to 10,000 a year for the playground.
operating expenses.
And Public Works really gets pulled in lots of different directions, so I would say that, you know, if they get pulled off to something, a water line or something else that has nothing to do with the parks, I mean, a lot of people think that's all they do is like on the public land, but they're really out all over the city all the time. And I'd say, you know, do you know, how much of his job is allocated to parks?
Oh, I mean, it varies by what second, honestly.
But I mean, do y'all have, I can't remember so when you said RCDC is paying for part of their salaries?
That's for like them, like administrative costs for us. Like that's different. That's
Gotcha,
separate.
gotcha.
Because for these meetings and things, since we're actually part of the city, it's.
I would say probably actual salary is probably like 10% allocated to parks.
Yeah, so it's a really small piece.
I wonder like things like, you know, talk about I'm just using this
Yeah.
totally hypothetical, but you know, mowing and the costs of mowers and gasoline and everything else, like, could we participate by buying an electric lawnmower? I don't know. I'm just making things up. Things that would reduce y'all's costs so that y'all can be more effective with the city council funds. But it doesn't sound like there's any one like ring.
I would say they do it pretty, tightly. I mean, they are not wasting money.
Yeah.
Especially since we stopped contracting with someone. That tends to be more expensive. The one good side, so we contract with ABC. The one good side about that, I don't have to maintain any of the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we get mowed no matter what. But if your mower's down, you might not get mowed for a few weeks. I do think, again, this staff is so small, they do a really good job of moving things around as needed. So sometimes it's hard to answer. I do know that the trail, they have to do the DG, the disintegrated granite, whatever. That's one of the areas that they have to do work on. I'm trying to think of, then there, you know, irrigation breaks. There's, trying to think of what else. Otherwise, it's kind of like your own yard. It's like you mow, you edge, seasonal, you aerate, you do weed and feed, you mulch. I mean, honestly, 126 for our whole parks is pretty amazing, I think. So again, I don't know if.
No, you answered my
Yeah.
question. I was just.
And
There's no magic bullet.
one of the things that I'll definitely say, there's several people on it that are like, I don't want to add anything that requires more maintenance. We can hardly maintain the things that we have. And so we're not really looking to do things. And so again, the trees are something that add shade. We hope that it grows, and with the exception of using the water and the irrigation, that they should be fairly self-sustaining and not hard to maintain. They should also, you know, help the trail from not shifting as much. You know, and the retaining wall should help with not
I was just
having
saying,
all that gravel.
it could be a good rating criteria when we're looking at multiple projects, because I think using your example there of the erosion thing, I think that is something that probably reduces, you know, time and effort spent on, you know, just kind of keeping things together.
And maybe asking the public works staff, like, where are y'all spending your time and effort that could
Yeah.
be better
That's a great
served
question.
in the rest of the community?
Like your water
'Cause
line's
that's the
breaking
kind of money
because
that,
the
like I see
irrigation's bad.
the RCDC spending where it's like there's a direct correlation. Like, I love trees, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, shade's great, but
Right.
you know, it's not contributing to the well-being financially of the community. So
Well, unless you think that parks are something that don't contribute. I mean, to me, a park is a huge
I-
part of our well-being.
no. I'm just saying trees. I'm not trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's parks in general, and that's again why I think we've tried to really focus on things that hit multiple ages, that brought both beauty and you know, made it more pleasant to be in the park. I mean, the hotter that it gets, it's really nice to have shade areas, and as much as, you know, some people love to put in shade structures, they are not as cool as a tree. And I know that means it's 20 years down the road, but they are so much cooler than putting in a
Takes time
shade
to water.
structure.
If you water these oak trees, I physically planted most of those trees out there on Rollingwood Drive front. So it was in my lifetime.
Yeah.
They were not terribly big trees, and oak trees will grow faster than you think they will if you get them good water consistently. And I think that having the irrigation system in good shape, that is part of the part of the budget.
Yep.
I think there was
and
10
then
grand.
keeping it in good shape, maintenance.
Yeah.
I think, subject to the lawyer's thought, but I can read the statute as well, and for the projects that we put the capital into, we can also pay for maintenance.
Yeah, the only reason I question is I remember when I first came on, there was a vote, or I think you and I both first came on, and there was a vote for mulch, and I was a little uncomfortable with it because, I mean, it looked like maintenance to me, and I didn't think that it was acceptable.
I'm not sure that we can do just general maintenance, but
Yeah.
for project, there's a specific statutory line that says for capital projects where we're putting in the capital, we can also then put in maintenance for it in the future. And that, to me, particularly with the water and the irrigation costs,
I would agree with that.
that's got to be a part of it, and we have to take that on and know we have to take that on, and they have to know that we'll be there to pay that.
Right. Or else we're throwing 50
or
grand
we're wasting
away.
the money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you're
agree.
What is the timeline to do this project?
Well, when we get it approved, like I said, we would either, I don't know if we have to come back to you if you approve it, or
No.
it's kind of confusing that way. I think we can just approve it, it would get funded by you all, and then we would make the proposal to city council, and it's
Right.
a funded project. I don't think there was, and again, not trying to make Phil speak for everybody, but I don't think there was any opposition to the project when it was brought up. It was just funding it.
Got it.
Yeah.
And when can Brian get out and start planting trees?
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like Brian wants
He's
to.
out there every once in a while. You'll see him out there maintaining, and I've caught him a couple times.
Thanks,
It's
Brian.
not a joke. I'm serious.
Okay, so,
I was younger than Barry. I could
So,
use, I could use
6
sorry,
months ago.
To answer your question,
I
you know,
shovel
I
a
would
lot
say,
better than I can now.
we could approve it tomorrow. I mean, if y'all approved it,
Yep.
then we could approve it, and then we
Then-
could send it to council, and I think
Okay.
the packet's due.
The plan is
So-
to have this on the city council agenda. If you were to, if you're holding your public hearing now, if after that you voted to, recommend that the council did fund or, approve the expenditure, it would go to their meeting next week. The only thing we would have to then work out is procurement, so we may not necessarily be able to just go with the one quote, but we have a really solid quote in the packet, and then we would move forward.
yeah, that was a pretty
That was
solid, that was a
Our
pretty
next step is
solid
to
quote.
approve or not approve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we ask for 2 more quotes, just so y'all have, once y'all go, once we
Yeah.
say yes or no, just say, hey, as part of this, we
Oh,
can
yeah.
get 3
Yeah, but
quotes.
the resolution we
Absolutely.
adopt then probably, Bobby, does not need to be so dollar,
Specific, right.
specific as the one we got. I mean, we got a bid, but it was from back in May,
Yeah,
and,
inflation.
yeah. Things have happened. So it seems to me that we need to authorize, I had 2 nitpicks with it. One was that we needed probably to authorize kind of a round number, that would allow possibly for some inflation, because I think you're likely to see that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, this is a tax-free project, question mark to our lawyer over there. This, because it's a city project, is it sales tax-free?
That's correct.
Now, I think that the resolution needs to add that we will sign whatever, or, again, question to you is, do we need to specifically authorize our officers to sign certificates or whatever might be needed to the suppliers? Because I know we have to give something to the nursery, or they're gonna charge us.
But the city has
The
that.
city will,
Does the
Yeah,
city
yeah,
do
yeah.
that?
City did.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need to do that. We don't need to worry about that.
and we would, I believe we'd be required to get 3 bids anyways
Anyways,
for
right.
something. If it's under 50, if it's over 50, that actually might change. We might have to do, a more formal bidding process, but I think it's a great start. And I agree with maybe putting, I don't know, 55,000, something to give you a little bit of cushion going forward, if that makes sense.
Or we just say up to $50,000 and we have to take some grass out, I don't know.
Yeah.
we know exactly
Yeah,
what it is
exactly.
Along those lines.
Okay, so one, we've had no comments from public hearings, so I think we can close that. Do we have a motion to approve funding up to $50,000 to go to city council for the tree project?
I so moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are those against? Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Than's for doing what y'all do over there.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
And come to our meeting sometime.
We will, well, and
Is it as
let's,
fun as this?
I make it 1 hour
Yeah.
at max.
No.
And if you all come and tell me ahead,
We usually do
you
30
be
minutes,
first on
so
the
we've
agenda.
kind of gone past our,
but let's line up for January if we can, if it works for you guys, for other stuff.
yeah.
We'd like to hear about it. Okay, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mission
Can I ask one question? Sorry. I just want to, no, just,
Can this be handled after meeting?
Just because we have an audience today.
no.
I've got an item too. I wanna-
I'll get with you later.
Sorry, boys.
That just got worse.
I'll get with you later.
All right, well, looking at the
I'm
minutes.
just
You
of-
joking.
can, I'm
Go ahead
just
if you want.
busting your chops.
All right, Barry had asked at the last meeting about whether or not our funds could be used for a certain project, and he was promised from the law firm that we would get an answer.
I got an answer from Megan before they switched, and the answer was no.
Okay.
What about the new law firm? I'm serious.
I know you are.
Can we ask again?
I think the answer's gonna be the same, but,
Yes.
but
Well, it never hurts to ask,
I think
Brian.
it falls
Every
into,
time you
like,
ask, it costs
it's
money.
not even maintenance, it's just general operations. I
Yeah.
don't see how
All
we
right.
can do that. Yeah, she was pretty quick to come back with a no. Okay, I'll try again. A motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, nice, do it.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
Bobby,
All right,
would you
all in
like a
favor?
copy of this?
Aye.
Or
Aye.
nominal
Thanks, everyone.
or treasurer?